I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this news. Couple of days ago, what happened is that this guy, his name is Stephen Hicks, he killed 3 Muslim students in North Carolina at Chapel Hill campus. And he was an atheist. A lot of people are saying that there was a dispute between them over a parking spot, and he used to fight with everyone over parking spots and the other people. And actually, these Muslim students' family, they are saying that this was a hate crime. He did not like the way they looked, and this is why he killed them, because they were Muslims. Both of those girls, they wore hijab, so they were hijabis. So that's very scary, you know.
Yes, it is very, very scary, Shazia. And the thing is, of course, the police is investigating, and there are many lunatic people everywhere in the world, including the US, where a parking spot or a minor dispute can turn into such a violent crime. But I think there's also the reality that there is this perception of Muslims and Islam, partly because of what Muslims are doing in the rest of the world. Whether whether it is Pakistan, or whether it's the way the Islamic State is beheading and killing people, journalists, Westerners. So obviously there's a reaction, but I think this has to be put in the perspective of minority rights, because these people, whether they were Muslims or Jews or any other faith, they're a minority, and a minority has to be protected, given that sense of freedom and protection by the society, and particularly a democracy. The US takes pride in the fact that it's a functional democracy where you have rights, freedoms. So this is a real test now. How the society, so far the signs are okay. Initially there was a lot of problem with the media coverage. For example, people were complaining that why the identity of the killed was not being highlighted, that they were Muslims. Now you see that the media is changing the tone. Similarly, lots of criticism on the police was made, that they were only reducing it to the parking lot. So I think we have to wait and see, but definitely it is worrying. It is worrying, from a purely minority rights perspective.
Absolutely. I have enjoyed living in America. I never had a bad experience when I came here. I came here actually after 9/11. I came a year before 9/11, but it all happened when I was here. And after that, I did my residency and I worked here. I never experienced any racism, or if a person at work is rude to me, they are usually rude to, and I mean other people as well. Like, that person is usually a rude person. I mean, they're rude to white doctors as well. So I never experienced that people look down on me or treat me any differently. But I wanted to share something with you. My daughter, she was in middle school last year, and she did have these experiences when other students, her classmates, they came to her, and there was one guy who used to call her Muhammad, and hey Muhammad the terrorist, or something like that. Hey, are you going to raise your bomb, or something like that? So, but he was also a child, so I did not pay much attention to it. So kids face it, and again, I mean, if this was a hate crime, or actually this guy was an atheist, I mean, but if you go on social media and read some comments, some of those comments are very scary. Under the news of this murder, there are so many people who wrote, "Oh, great, I mean, kill them all," or "Yeah, this is what they deserved," "Oh, it's your turn now," and things like that, So that is very scary, especially being a mom. I'm raising a daughter here in this country.
No, I agree with you. It's scary, and but I wanted to ask you. So really, you never faced any threat or
never. I think about it. Why not? And probably the reason is because I don't dress the Muslim way. I like to show my hair, and I just wear Western clothes. But I did go out once with my friend who covers her hair. We were at a restaurant, right? And the server actually, he looked scared, and he was like keeping his distance and not smiling as much. So I did realize that it must be due to the hijab that girl is wearing, But we can't change our looks, And here's the thing: these 3 students, were actually born and raised in America. They were all American kids, like my daughter. I mean,
yeah.
she doesn't know anything about my country. She's born and raised here. So even if these children follow a religion because they're born into that religion, they are not really any different than a regular American.
Yes, I mean, but where do you think, Shazia, because now you're a long-time American resident, so, where can the society or the government here, what can they do to, address this impression of Muslims?
They are trying their best. I think maybe we should tell people more. People have really started to hate us. I do not actually call myself a moderate Muslim anymore because I have kind of moved away from all religions. But
Yeah,
rest of my family, they still, my husband, my sisters, my brother, they all call themselves moderate Muslims. So maybe people here need to know more about moderate Muslims. They're just like moderate Christians. I mean, I
I
was
think,
thinking that.
I think you're a good role model. We should make you a poster girl of, a moderate Pakistani American, because the thing is that I have to say something, I have only been here for a few months, as you know, and I'm visiting. I don't even know how long will I stay here. One day I have to go back to Pakistan, but I do also feel that sometimes Muslims themselves become too narrow in their identity. They don't integrate with society. They don't integrate with the whites and the black people, the Hispanics. I mean, this is such a diverse place. And if you see Pakistanis hang out with Pakistanis, Moroccans hang out with Moroccans, everybody's like totally into their circle.
That's absolutely true. There are communities like here, Pakistani community. They just mostly meet with each other. I mean,
Yeah,
they throw parties for each other. The hate crime should be unacceptable. The good thing about America is that a murderer here cannot get away with a murder. If
yeah.
it happened in Pakistan, nobody can punish these people. In
Oh, in
Pakistan, if you do
Pakistan,
something.
I'm very surprised because on social media, so many Pakistanis are like saying, "Oh, three Muslims have been killed, and America is evil." And Pakistanis forget, that hundreds of non-Muslims or minorities are killed, and they don't even
So
protest.
many people came out today for these three children. In Pakistan, whenever there is like a Christian is killed or a Hindu woman was killed once, I mean, nobody even comes out because they will be killed too if they try to
Yeah.
protest or anything. And so
That's what I asked. So this guy was really saying, "Oh, well, you should condemn the U.S. All U.S. The Christians hate Muslims, and the U.S. is an enemy of Muslims." And I said, "Look, there are millions of Muslims living here." So I tweeted this, and I told him, I said, "Tell me about yourself." Just recently, 61 Shias were killed in a Imam Barga in Pakistan. How many people came out to protest for that? Have you? I asked the guy, have you protested about them? I mean, you are so concerned about legitimately, everywhere a human being dies, our heart, sort of skips a beat because it's tragic, it's against humanity. But this guy, so I asked him, I said, what about your own minorities? What about your own Christians? What about the Ahmadis? What about the Hindus? They are killed, targeted, attacked. Why are you? So this, this is the mindset. Here's the problem. That I think that, this community has been targeted. And I was looking at the figures, by the way, Shazia, you will be surprised that hate crimes in America against Muslims are only 2% of the total hate crimes.
it's very low. A lot of Americans, they hate atheists more, they hate gays more, they hate African Americans more. Yeah, this hatred towards Muslims is actually relatively new.
Yes.
But really they need to know. I mean, this is what I want to tell everyone because I really, since I moved away from religion, I really do not defend Muslims. But I think, I mean, time has come that I should say something. Like looking at my own family, all these moderate Muslims in my family, they like any other religion. In Quran, there are violent verses, and then there are verses that teach like patience and tolerance and love and peace. What these moderate Muslims do is they follow the peaceful part of Quran. Even if I try to tell my husband or my parents that there are verses in Quran that talk about jihad and not very tolerant, it's not in their language. They're going to say, oh, you misunderstood them, or don't misinterpret.
Yeah.
God can't say like that.
Well,
Everybody.
I think Shazia, there are two things here. One is the religious identity, So being a Muslim is also, it means that you pray, you fast, you go to Kaaba for pilgrimage, you wear a certain dress code or whatever. The other part is the cultural Muslim, So, whether you and I, whether we are devout Muslims or not, our names are Muslim. I mean, you Shazia
We look
is
like
a Muslim
Muslims, yeah.
name. You come from Pakistan. We can't change that. Unless you become Susan. So I don't know, or I become something, Roland or whatever. So our cultural identities will always be there. So this is why incidents like this hate crime, I don't treat it as a Muslim specific crime. I think it's a crime against humanity. It is crime against people. It is crime against citizens of America. Three
Absolutely, yeah.
young
I
beautiful.
completely agree. Like I always say, whenever there's a hate crime in Pakistan, I always say that it's Pakistanis who has to protect Pakistanis. Even if they
Yes,
are Christians, if they are Hindus, they are Pakistanis. You have the same way Americans have to protect other Americans. My
yes,
daughter, no one from something happens to her, or what happened to these kids. Nobody from Pakistan is going to come to defend them. Nobody's going to. Uh, they probably hate them as well. So then where would they go? Other Americans have to defend these Americans. They're Americans. I mean, there's
absolutely.
different kinds of Americans even here. Somebody said, oh, they didn't like the way they looked. And there are people here who have so many tattoos. There are people who have so many piercings. There's Jews with long beards. There are all kinds of people here, and that's the beauty of this country, that everybody gets a place. And now most people don't hate each other. This still is the safest country to live in. I still feel safer here than Pakistan.
I'm safe here. That's why I'm here. I'm feeling that feeling, and frankly, in the past few months while I've been here, I mean, my experience is limited. I go to the think tank, I come back, or I go to an event, but I've never faced that kind of discrimination, or nobody has said that. But at the same time, I do read the papers, I look at social media, I look at the TV, and it is a growing problem. I think the media has a big role in it.
It's
The
becoming worse, absolutely. I think this hatred towards Muslims is actually becoming worse. And part of that is ISIS. ISIS and all those other people who are killing, holding these Americans hostages and killing them. But people who are living in America, they have nothing to do with it. People living in Pakistan, like far, far away, my relatives in Pakistan, they have nothing to do with it. I mean, my father was more concerned about my material education. I mean, like my science, not about my religious education. He was more concerned about, if I didn't read Quran, he would be okay with it. But if I didn't read science or biology or chemistry, he would be more angry. So those Muslims are just like Christians, basically. They just want to follow a religion. If they follow that religion, they're not going to go to jihad. They love their lives. They want to live good lives, and a lot of Muslims here go to bars, go to parties. They do all those things that Christians do here. They're
yeah,
not here to kill anyone. They want to, have a good life.
yes, I think that's exactly the point, and I think what Muslims here, whether they are Pakistani Muslims or Arabs or African Muslims, they really have to now stand up and tell the other larger community here that they don't sympathize with terrorism. They don't think terrorism is a fair thing. It is, and these organizations like ISIS and others and the Taliban, I mean, they have to shun it. They have to reject this violence and violent.
Very openly, yeah. They have to read more openly and more aggressively, and just tell them.
The problem is when you have a religion, you have a clergy, and you have mullahs or you have priests or you have whoever, they interpret and twist things to such a degree because it's about power. Religion and interpreting religion is being powerful. So when even in
Literally,
our
yeah, it's
yeah
literally.
even in our community, if a child is born, somebody gives an azan in his or her ear, then a child has to, grows up, reads the Quran, and the Maulvi celebrates. Then the marriage happens, the Maulvi comes for nikah. You die, the Maulvi comes and reads the prayer. So we are also dependent on these clerics, and we give them all the license to speak for ourselves. While we have to speak for ourselves, we Muslims are all types of Muslims. You come from a Muslim background. I come from a Muslim background. A hijab, these hijabi, poor victims, they also are Muslims. So Muslims are not a monolith. There are hundreds of varieties of Muslims as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. Just like there are too many different kinds of Christians. Yeah.
Yeah, so we need to show this face of diversity, and the fact that there are people like you living here for the last 14, 15 years and integrated into American society. There are so many others I know I've met, in DC, in New York, wherever I go. And I think we need to put up, and so not through these videos, through writings, through social media, we have to quell this impression, because it is also our responsibility. We can't keep on saying, oh, the American media is biased, the American politicians are biased, the Bible, the Quran burning pastor in Florida is biased. We have to take some responsibility as well. We have to
Absolutely.
show that we are not a violent creed, and ultimately, until we don't show that, and we don't reclaim our cultural heritage from these mullahs, this problem will continue.
Absolutely.